Good morning, folks, peeps. How are you doing this morning? This is Wayne Walker. I am your host for the Hypno Lions Roar podcast, the podcast with teeth. And I'm excited to be here today. I have some interesting topics that we're going to discuss, talk about. One is we're going to talk about the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and how it relates to you and why you want to know about it, why you want to understand it. And it's going to be this is going to be a little bit long topic because there's some things I'm going to explain about these two minds that is going to be, it's going to help, it's going to help you understand some things. Okay. The other thing is that we're going to, later, we're going to discuss carnivore diet and how to start it. The best way to start it. I'm going to give you some resources to refer to, some other links to some YouTube videos of doctors that I respect, that I follow myself. They can lay it out very succinctly for you, but I want to kind of fill it in from my perspective, and then you can take it and run with it if you will. Okay. Now, on the conscious mind, subconscious mind, we're also going to talk about the primitive mind, which is the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. But I want to give you a point on all of this. Everything that I'm going to tell you about the conscious mind and subconscious mind, and anything that ever has been written about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, is all theory. It's all theory. It's what somebody's looked at and say, hey, this is the same based on results and up and and all that stuff. It's just theory. I'm going to give you my take on it. Some of it is standard research, but I want you to understand that it's a theory, and it's the best thing that we've got to explain it. All right, and it's pretty consistent. Also, I want to let you know that the word hypnosis is a word that's only been in place for a couple of 100 years, not long at all. It's like the word dinosaur. That word never existed until 100 years or so ago. Okay, but anyway. So there's some interesting things that are going to come about this. We're going to explore the distinctions, the interactions between the conscious mind and subconscious mind. We're going to shed some light on what their roles are, how they influence our thoughts, behaviors, and experiences. The interplay between the conscious mind and subconscious mind. They work to collaborate together, but they learn and they process information completely different. Okay. The conscious mind does not automatically change the subconscious mind programming. And the reason being is because the conscious mind is a filter. Okay. And I'm going to get into a little bit more deeply to that and how that process works based on experience and based on research. Okay. The conscious mind and subconscious mind are distinct aspects of our mental process. They're distinctly different with each its own attributes and powers here. But the breakdown on this of the differences between the two are fairly simple. Okay, this is not rocket science. The conscious mind involved with awareness, rational thinking, decision making, deliberate actions. It's responsible for our communication behavior, how we behave, what we can consciously say or do, and it's a part of our mind that's always active when we are aware of our thoughts. Okay. So as soon as you become aware of what you're thinking, you've moved into the conscious mind. If you're not aware of what you're thinking, it's a subconscious mind that's dealing with things. Okay. Such as when we're engaged in task and are consciously, and our consciousness of doing it. We're conscious of actually doing it. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're driving And research has shown the average individual goes in and out of hypnosis every day, anywhere from 5 to 7 times a day. It's a natural process. Okay. It's like daydreaming. If you've ever sat around just daydreaming and you got lost in thought, you've moved into the realm of hypnosis. Okay. But let's say you're driving from point A to point B, and you get in the car, you start out, you back out, you're watching the traffic, you're in the conscious world, and you just are trying to get going. Okay. Cars are passing you, look to the left, look to the right. It's all conscious. Once you get in the mode of where you're going and you start that journey, and let's say it's a journey that you've taken every day, maybe going to work, and you take the same route to work. So as soon as you start doing it and settle down, your driving is then taken over by the subconscious mind. It's taking that over. It's the automatic reactions and so on. Now, it's freeing you up to think about consciously, okay, when I get to work, I got to talk to so-and-so. I got to do this. I'm going to do this and this. You know what? Yesterday, that person this, and they really twisted my panties on something and blah, 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 blah. Because you're consciously thinking about these things. You're not thinking about driving. But let's say as you're driving, all of a sudden, there's a car that comes into the lane next to you and they're swerving in. And your peripheral vision picks that up. Your subconscious mind snaps you out and says, this needs to be taken over by you. Pay attention. And in a split nanosecond, you switch from driving in a subconscious way to now driving in a conscious way to avoid, because you have to take action. All your focus is on avoiding an accident in that split second. And then you say your words, or you give your one finger salute, and it's just something else that's pissed you off. And then you move back into the conscious world of thinking about what you do, and your driving is taken over by the subconscious. So now you get to point B and you pull in, you go, wow, that was a quick trip. I don't remember getting off the exit or turning here or whatever. Because you are operating in the subconscious on a subconscious level. Okay. It's not conscious. So that's the conscious mind, and how a little bit of how it reacts into the, relates to the subconscious mind. Okay. Now let's move into the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind, it operates beneath the surface of the consciousness awareness. It's responsible for automated movements, storing information, influencing influencing our behaviors. It may not always be apparent to our conscious mind. It guides our automatic movements. It stores information, allows us to perform tasks without conscious effort, such as riding a bike, okay, or driving. The subconscious mind creates habits, and habits are the short information. They're the little things that are created, the little blocks that are created for you to do a repetitive task over and over and over and over and over, and perform it the same way and not have to think about it. That's what a habit is. Now, the habit can be good or it can be bad. It can be one that you want to keep or that you want to get rid of. The old approach on habits, it used to be, to break a habit or make a habit, you have to have 21 days of consistent, persistent, focused effort to do that, to break a habit or create a habit. There's absolutely no data on that, the 21 days. It's a fallacy. Okay. Can you break a habit? Absolutely. Can hypnosis help you break a habit? Yes. Very quickly. Excuse me. Okay. So anyway, so the interplay between the conscious mind and subconscious mind, the conscious, subconscious mind, they work to collaborate together. They learn differently. And it's all in the theory of mind. Now, I've got a diagram of the theory of the mind and how the separation and what it does, and it kind of explains it. You'll have access to that where you can click on it, and if you want to look at it and go ooh and ah and all that stuff, I would suggest that you take a look at it to understand the difference in how things happen. Okay. Now, let me just look at my notes here to make sure I want to move on to a certain area here, because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm trying to communicate. Okay. So now let's talk about a child. Any child. A child is born, and from the time they're born until they hit about the age of 11, 12, 13, depending on the child, that child is in a constant state of hypnosis. And what I mean by that is that they are operating on the subconscious level at all times, and they have to. And the reason they have to is they have to learn survival skills, language skills. They have to do certain tasks, have no fears. See, when we're born, we're born with two things: the fear of loud noises and fear of falling. Everything else is a learned response, whether it's positive or negative. Why do you think kids, when they start to explore, they touch, they're tactile, they feel, they put it in their mouth, they taste, they diss, and you have to watch them? Okay. Well, the reason being is because they're imprinting information. So if you have a child that walks into the kitchen or crawls into the kitchen, they pull themselves up on to their little feet and they're reaching over on the top of the cabinet, and there's a stove. It's a hot stove. But let's assume for a second you don't get to them quick enough and they touch a burner, something hot, not too hot, okay? But they touch something hot enough to pull them back, and it freaks them out and they start crying. Well, that becomes an imprint, okay? Now that imprint may create a trigger mechanism that every time they see a stove now, they freak out, okay? That is the imprint that they got. Or they may look at a stove and go, no, I'm going to go around there. It's hot. I'm not going to do it. Pain. Pain is a good teacher. Okay. We need to use pain to teach children in certain things. You know, you may or may not agree with that, but that's just the way that it is. As a martial arts instructor, pain is a very valuable thing in teaching. And the reason being is because if you don't block correctly and somebody comes across and punches you in the nose, that pain tells you, I need to block. Because if you don't, you're going to get punched in the nose again. And a person is only going to allow that to happen, hopefully once. So pain is a good teacher. And pain is used in such a way that not as a punishment, not as a fit of anger from your part because you don't know how to control yourself. And that's a different thing, but we'll get into that. There's a lot of stuff we'll get into, but I don't want to digress here. So let's go back to the child. They're in a constant state of hypnosis from the time they're born until they're about, like I say, 11, 12, 13 years old. And they're taking all this information in the imprints. And all of these imprints form information on how they make decisions going forward. Okay? Some of them is the decisions are self-serving. They're selfish. There's an acronym called WIFM, W-I-I-F-M, and it stands what's in it for me. And people are full of that. I don't care if you're a child or if you're an adult. Everybody's got a WIFM. They do things based on what's in it for them. And that's just human nature. Okay? So you have all of these imprints. It creates blocks of information. And then by the time they hit 11, 12, 13 years old, the veil of the conscious mind starts coming down here. And over a period of time, could be days, it could be over weeks, it could be a month, but whatever the case may be, that veil of consciousness comes down, becomes the filter, the protector of the subconscious mind. It prevents things from getting into the subconscious mind, okay, at that time. So now I want you to think about this for just a moment. So you're now 20, 22, 25, 36, you're 100 years old. And all of your information on how you make decisions, how you process, and so on and so forth, the base of that information came from the imprints when you were born until you were 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the way that it is. And that's how people continue to do things over and over and over, expecting different results, but they're doing the same things over and over and over. Why? Because it's habit, because it's programmed, and they can't deviate from that. They don't know how to change it. Okay? So what has to happen? Well, you have to raise that veil of consciousness, expose the subconscious mind, the doors to the subconscious mind to open. And then once they're open, you can pull things out, change them, get rid of them, put things in, new programming, this and blah, 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 blah. Close the doors on the conscious mind, the veil of consciousness comes back down, and now it's like you have an upload or a updated data. Okay. Now, how is the conscious mind, that veil, raised? Or how do you go into hypnosis? And you go into hypnosis several different ways. Okay. Some of it is you naturally go into it. You go in here, that you're lost in thought and you're in hypnosis. And I want you to, I want to paint a picture here. So let's assume that you're watching a movie and you're totally engrossed in the movie. You're singularly focused. You're listening to it, and you're not paying any attention to anything. Your wife or husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, comes in, they sit down, a glass of water in front of you. You don't even see them. But at that point there, your subconscious mind is open for programming. So now let's think about something that happens. Let's say somebody's in the kitchen, you hear a crash of glass on the floor, you hear somebody scream, and you look at the program and you're seeing a certain spot in the programming. Very quickly, you get up and you rush in to see what's going on, and somebody's broken a glass and nothing's happened very seriously, blah, 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 blah. But at that moment, what you did, or what can happen, is a scene out of that movie becomes the trigger to what just happened. So you can watch that movie 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, get to that spot, and it's very likely that you're going to remember the event in the kitchen of the crashing. Oh yeah, this is a spot where blah, 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 blah. Well, that's an imprint. It's a simple explanation, but you can take that however you want it and be as dramatic. A car accident. You're in a car accident. You're going into hypnosis. Okay. Anything traumatic can raise the veil of the consciousness and open up the subconscious mind to receive an imprint. Okay. To receive information. And once it closes, how the subconscious mind utilizes that is going to be based on the subconscious mind, how it organizes it, this, and how you emotionally tie it into it. And It could be a dog bite. Let's say you're walking down the street, you see the dog, oh, look at the cute little dog, blah, 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 blah. And the dog turns around and bites you. Well, depending on your emotional state, depending on your personality type and that, subconscious mind opens, traumatic, you freak out, dog bite, blood, ouch, hurts, call the paramedics, or you go home and treat it, whatever the case may be. But 6 days later, you're walking down the street and you see a dog. And now all of a sudden, that event has changed the way that you react to a dog. It becomes an imprint. Subconscious mind imprints. It protects you. Dog, bite, pain, blood, stay away from, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So that's how things get imprinted. Now, the other way to raise that conscious fail, besides trauma, is stress. Stress will cause the consciousness to raise, that veil to raise, to expose the subconscious mind and receive programming. And stress can be anything. You can sit down at the kitchen table, and if you're like many families, you sit down at the kitchen table, you eat, or you make major decisions at the kitchen table, or you do your bills at the kitchen table if you don't have an office or a desk, a home office or a desk. But as soon as you pull out that chair and sit down, depending on what your intent is at that table, to eat, to make major decisions, or pay bills, your subconscious mind is starting to move into, or you're into a certain realm of decision making. And if you're paying your bills, and if you're like many families in the country today, there's more month than money. There's not enough of it to go around. So you're allocating and you're stressing over that. And that level of stress can raise. And it could be one bill that you hear, don't have to see, you just hear about it or you think about it. That one bill that just, and you're getting the phone calls. And that becomes an imprint. Okay. I want you to think back, for those of you who are old enough. Well, you know what? Imagine this. I'm going to move into the primitive mind here in just a moment, the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. And I'm going to show you why this is important and why we as a society just don't understand. I mean, we're just oblivious to things, okay? But on the diagram that I'm going to have available to you, it's called the theory of mind. It's been around. I've taken it. I've modified it. I've put my little spin on this thing and that to explain it and that. But the area between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, that little area there is a critical mind area. That's where you think critically, okay? And then once you accept things or the programming in that, it drops down into the subconscious mind and it becomes those little bits of information that I was talking about, those blocks, become knowns, okay, which is information. And it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative or indifferent or whatever the case may be. The subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between positive or negative, a lie or the truth. It's just information. Because we don't make decisions about right or wrong, up or down, left or right, until it moves into the conscious mind where we look at it and go, yeah, that's not right. Okay. Now, there are some people, if you're driving down the street, or if you or they, okay, you're driving down the street, you look off to the side, you see a person that's breaking the glass on a store after it's closed. Okay. Now you're watching this. Now you may either say, oh my God, he's breaking that store. I need to call the police. That's wrong. Well, that's a conscious thing. You've made a conscious decision. That's wrong. It's not right. Call the cops. Or you look at it and you say, okay, I wonder what he's going to take home after that. And you continue driving. Or you pull over and say, hey, I'm going in with you. You're making a conscious decision based on your moral compass. Okay? The moral compass. What your rules are for your life and how you look at them. I hope this is tying in together where you're starting to understand the importance of understanding these things. Now, when you have your child, if you have children, if you've had children and they've grown up, or maybe you still have kids at home. When they do something, let's say they're 8, 9, 10 years old, and they go into the cookie jar or whatever, okay? They go into the cookie jar without permission, and you catch them doing that. And you ask them, what are you doing? Well, what you've just done is you've asked a question for them to search to give you an answer. What are you doing? And you say, I'm getting a cookie. You know you're not supposed to be in there. Why are you doing that? And then they go, I don't know. Well, in all likelihood, they're actually telling you the truth that they don't know. And the reason they don't know is because they're still imprinting. They're still learning how to react, information, and do, and this, and critical thinking skills, and this, and how to manipulate. And all. Those are all skills that they have to develop. Now, whether you like it or not, we all go through it. It's the reaction of the parent that will cause that child to either grow from the experience or create issues for that child that once the subconscious mind closes, the conscious veil comes down, subconscious mind closes, and the issues of how this and so on and so forth, and they go through life, and you're sitting years later at the table and says, yeah, little Johnny always does. And it goes back to an event. Everything that a person does, they always have a reason for. They may not be able to explain it. They may not be able to articulate it. But within the subconscious mind, there's always a reason for. And if a person wants to make changes, they have to have new programming. They have to get rid of the old programming, establish new programming, and then they can go forward. Okay? Now, let's talk about the primitive mind, the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. All right? Imagine sitting down, watching the news like we all have, or listening to the radio, and there is a police chase. They're chasing a car through the city. Several police cars behind them, red lights going off, and blah, 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 woo, 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 sirens and going in and out of traffic and blah, blah, blah. And let's say that they get the guy stopped or woman stopped. They pull him over. They've got their guns drawn. And I want you to put yourself in the place of the driver of that vehicle for a moment. Okay? And I want you to go back to the very beginning. Imagine going back to the beginning of this chase. And we don't know why the chase started, but the very fact that it started was when the police showed up. Okay? That throws a person into hypnosis because it's stress. The conscious veil comes up, subconscious mind opens, and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And that's where they move into the primitive mind, the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. Well, Obviously, if there's a car chase, they've moved into the flight. Okay. And this is any animal. Any animal does this. They're fleeing. Their first instinct is to get away. All right. Now, it may not be logical. You may be watching the news and they're running from the police and they're going, what are they doing? They've got a chopper in the air. They got all these police cars. They know they're not getting away. Why are they running? Well, because they've moved into the flight mechanism, and there is no logic to that. In order for them to not flee, they have to move out of the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism and move into the logical area consciously and say, this is nonsense. Let me pull over here. Now, do they do that? No. Because they've already activated that fight, flight, or freeze. Now, some people will say the adrenaline. Okay, it's an adrenaline dump. Well, yeah. But when they were forced into, and I'm saying forced, and I'm not making a judgment on this, when a person is forced to flee because they feel they have no other options, that decision is made, and then the adrenaline dump happens to support the fleeing. So it becomes a cycle. Okay. So they finally get the person pulled over. They pull their guns in hypnosis, and there's all sorts of imprints taking place at this point. They get the person out of the car. They handcuff them. They set them down. Things are starting to come down, and they ask the person, "Why did you run?" And they look at them and go, I was scared. Okay. Now, there may be other underlying reasons for that. Well, they knew they had a warrant out. They knew that this, or they knew they had been caught and they didn't want to get caught. And the cop says, we were only pulling you over for your tail light or because of this. Now, you may think, say, if I was running, I'd say, well, I didn't get the memo on that. So, all right, I made certain assumptions and boom, there we go. So that's the flight, the flee. Now, the fight. Let's assume it's in the same scenario. Pull over. Cops say, hey, get out of the car. Not getting out. They drag him out, and now there's 3, 4, 5, 12 cops, whatever. And this person decides at this point he wants to fight. So he's moved from flee to being cornered to fight. And this is all being done on a subconscious level. There is no conscious thought going on at this time. It's all reaction. It's all reactionary. Okay. Or they pull him out and the guy or woman just freezes like a deer in the headlight. They're catatonic. They just are there. They can't speak. They can't follow instructions. You've got cops yelling at them, and now that which raises this. Okay. See, the way that the cops, and I'm using the cops in a very general way here to show this example because it's a good example. Okay. The reaction and how cops approach things create a lot of the responses because they move people into the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. Once they activate that, then all bets are off. And then charges are hit with them and all that, and their charges are being put against them. Well, you did this, you fought the police, you hit a block, blah, blah, blah. That was all done unconsciously. That was not a conscious thought because of the way the cops started the process. Now, look, sometimes they got to do what they got to do to stop this individual. The person is, maybe they did more serious crime, whatever. They just got to take control of the situation. But if you approach it in a certain way to where you don't activate the fight, fire, freeze mechanism, or you're aware that you don't want to activate that you want to keep it below that in the conscious realm of back and forth. Hey, how you know, don't feel threatened to that, because once the threat is perceived, then it moves into that, and they're not, and they can't control it. Okay. So that's how the fight, flight, or free mechanism operates. Now I want you to go back to your home life. Let's say you're talking to your wife, subject matter comes up, she perceives it as an attack or a threat or whatever, and then boom, she drops down into the fight, flight, or free mechanism, and then the fight's on. Okay, and it's self-perpetuating, and maybe you are activated and you're in the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism, and then you have this conflict, and crap comes out of both of your mouth that once you say it, you can't take it back, and you cannot not say it because you're in that realm of the primitive mind. Whereas if you stopped and thought for just a moment, and you were conscious not to activate that primitive mind by creating conversation and not moving up into irritation or anger or whatever the case may be, would that help your relationship? Think about your kids, how you talk to them. Are you activating that? Are you attacking in the words, the tonality of your voice, and I'm in charge? And again, personality comes in play in this. And once again, I'll get into that in a different episode. But be aware of activating that fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. I hope I'm making sense here to where you can kind of understand what's going on. Okay. Now, the diagram that you're going to have access to, it'll go into message units, which is body, environment, subconscious mind, conscious mind, the messages, the activation, the knowns, units of communication, positive, negative, doesn't matter. Okay. The subconscious mind cannot recognize a negative. So if you tell little Johnny, hey, don't drop that glass on the floor, they hear it, the subconscious mind processes it, but what the subconscious mind is, drop the glass on the floor. It doesn't hear the word don't. It can't recognize a negative. Okay. So any of you who ride motorcycles, when you're riding your motorcycle, you do not look at the turn that you're trying to make, because where your eyes go is where the motorcycle is going to go. You look past where you want to go, and you'll naturally go there. Same thing with riding a bike. Okay. Same thing with riding a bike. If you're driving and you're on a narrow, if you're riding a bike and you're on a narrow little path and you want to keep the bike on that narrow little path, then you look past it. It'll stay on the narrow path. But as soon as you get nervous and you look down and you look over to the side, you're going off the path. Okay. You're going off the path. It's no different than if you take a 12-inch board, a 2x12 board that's 20 feet long, lay it on the ground, and I put you at one end of it, and I say, walk across this board. You'll walk across the board probably very easily. Okay. Now, if I take that board and I raise it 10 feet in the air and I say, okay, do the same thing, all of a sudden you're looking at the fall and you're going to have a hard time navigating that board. Maybe you have a fear of heights, you fell before, you don't want to be up there, or you're afraid, whatever the case may be, you're going to have issues with that. But all you've done is raise, same board, you walked across it on the ground, but you just changed the environment a little bit. Okay. So, on the theory of mind, it's going to go over, this diagram will go over defense mechanism, it'll go over an ab reaction. It'll give you what ab reaction is, which is sudden unexpected release of energy from the body. Okay. It's almost like in hypnosis, when I'm working with clients, as I take them into hypnosis and as I have them into hypnosis, the body may release energy in certain parts of the body. Those become, they may or may not be important, but I need to make a notation of those. What am I doing at that time, and how does that ab reaction relate to what's going on at the time? It's almost like if you're in bed and you're getting ready to drift off to sleep, and then all of a sudden you jerk awake. Okay, that's an ab reaction. That's a sudden release of energy. It has to be done. It's like two tectonic plates, here, and then boom, that release of energy. Pain and pleasure syndrome. Known pleasures, unknown pains. Okay, the pain or pleasure aspect, whichever is bigger wins. Again, that's a whole different thing we can go over. Critical area of mind developed from birth to about age of 10, 12, 13 years old. But anyway, you'll have access to this diagram, this image on the theory of mind. You can look at it and kind of get an idea of how it works, because I think it's important. Okay. So in summary, the conscious mind is responsible for rationalizing and logical thinking, while the subconscious mind is responsible for the involuntary actions and the store of beliefs and attitudes and memories that influence your behaviors, okay, and experiences. Understanding the distinctions between these two aspects of the mind can provide valuable insight to how your thoughts and behaviors and spirit experiences are shaped, and how you can influence them on your children or even your spouses. Okay. If you have a woman that has been abused in a relationship, I can guarantee you she's gone into hypnosis and those things are imprinted, and she reacts in the environment in order to protect herself. And you go back to the WIFM, the what's in it for me. What's in it for me is survival. But if you know this and you can understand this, then you can look at the other individual and start to develop an understanding of why they do and how to protect yourself from that. Okay. So I hope I've given you some things to think about here today on this topic. Shoot me a message. Give me some feedback on it if you'd like me to expand on a thing or on some of this. I can do that at a later time. But I hope I gave you a little bit of information on this, and it's valuable to you for you to understand and start to understand the power that we all have. And the power that we have is understanding this 6 inches between our ears and how we can change it, and how we can release things that are affecting us, how we can release the things that cause the anxieties and the depressions and the panic attacks and all of these different things and habits. This is the power that we have. Okay, perfect. All right. So now, moving into our second part here. This will be a little bit shorter. Well, How to start the carnivore way of eating. This is actually very simple. Carnivore way of eating is simply eating meat, eggs, animal product. You're not eating any carbohydrates. You're not eating vegetables. You're not eating fruits. You're not eating processed carbohydrates. You're not eating processed food. If it's got a package with a barcode on it, you don't eat it. If it didn't come from an animal in it and it's in its pure form, you don't eat it. Okay. Now, some people will say, well, that's boring. And I would say to them, okay, at what time did the process of feeding the body and getting the nutrient dense food become a non-boring thing to where we had to up the thing in order to excite our palate? Okay. There are some things you do in life that you shouldn't be doing. I mean, that just, and what would you tell your kids? So, the carnivore way of eating, the best way to approach it is to do a 30-day meat challenge. Okay. Commit to 30 days. You can do anything for 30 days. Okay. Anything. It's 30 days. It's 1/12 of a year. Okay. 30 days. But in actuality, once you get a week into it, the rest of the 30 days is going to be very simple to deal with. Okay. And starting with the one meat challenge, you're only eating meat as a way to begin this process. Okay. It involves consuming meat, beef, pork, fish, chicken, poultry, but you also have to make sure that you're getting enough good fat. Now, good fat can be, the cut of beef that you're eating, like a ribeye it's got everything that you need in there. You don't need to put anything else on it. You salt that rascal up, cook it. You can sear it in a cast iron pan like I do, reverse sear it, and then take it and put it on the grill, cook it for 5 or 10 minutes if you like it medium rare or well, or whatever the case may be. Set it down, 10 minutes you eat, and you're done. And chances are after the week, if you have a ribeye, a regular sized ribeye, and you've gotten through the first week, I would challenge you that you're not going to be able to finish that ribeye, because the body is going to give you signals that you're done eating. And it's like Dr. Chafee says, you eat until it stops tasting good. And you'll know, you will absolutely. When I first heard him say that, I'm thinking, what in the hell is he talking about? But he's right. There have been many times that my wife and I sat down and we had our own steak, piece of meat, whatever, and we can't finish all of it. And we said we should have just split one. Okay. The body will adjust to where it needs to be. Okay. You're excluding plants, no vegetables, no fruits, no cereals, no grains, no carbohydrates, processed. Very simple. Just meat, eggs, and hard cheeses. If you don't have issues with dairy. If you have issues with dairy, then leave the cheese out. Okay. I drink coffee. I stopped coffee for a month. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I'll have 2 cups in the morning and then I'm done. Okay. And most of the time, and I've tried the teas and I drink tea experience is not the same. I'm sorry. Okay. But I use a little bit of heavy cream in my coffee, and I use Trivia, the natural sweetener. And some people on the carnivore diet say, hey, cut out all sugar, all your sweets and that, because it activates this. It's something you have to experiment with, because everybody's different in that realm. Okay. Now you're going to have to consider your cravings. If you're the type of person that in the evening, after you're done eating, after dinner, and then a few minutes later, all of a sudden you get a craving for sweets. Okay. You need to put that off. Get all your sweets out of the house, get them in the trash, get them away. Whatever you do with them, just get them out of the house, because you're cutting all sugars out. Okay. On your meats, you do not put sauces on it. Now, after you get to a certain point, if you want to reintroduce sauces that are sugar-free, you have to be very aware of sugar. Sugar is a bad thing. Okay. Sugar is a bad thing. Sugar causes a lot of issues. The vegetables and fruits that you eat today, these vegetables and fruits are not the same vegetables and fruits from 100 years ago. They've been genetically modified to be more shelf stable, sweeter, to get you to eat more of them. Okay. Completely different animals. Cut it out, because it affects your sugar levels in your body. It turns to glucose. Okay. So just eliminate that. I don't have any cravings for sweets anymore, or carbohydrates or breads or anything like that. I just don't eat it. It's one of the rules that I have, I guess you could say. I just don't eat that stuff. Okay. Now, this is where hypnosis can help. If you are the type of person that says, man, I've just got to have sugar. I work with people all the time to eliminate sugar cravings, the sugar addictions, or carbohydrate addictions, or portion control. Portion controls are going to take care of themselves. Okay. So the other thing that you're going to do is your meal frequency. You're going to start by eating the same number of meals you currently consume. So if you eat 3 times a day, eat 3 times a day. Only meat. If you're out and about and you're just hungry and you have to get something to eat, then you can swing into a fast food restaurant and say, I want a burger only. No sodas, no French fries, none of that crap, because it's all crap. It's cooked in vegetable oil. Anyway, meat only. Order the burger, pull it out, eat the freaking patty, throw the rest of it in the trash, because that's where it belongs. Okay, if you throw it in the trash and leave it there for a month, come back, it's still going to be there. It's not going to disintegrate. It's not going to mold. I mean, that should tell you something. Okay, so just animal product, period. You have to be militant when you start this. You have to be singularly focused on doing this. Okay. You can get anal about it. You can keep a journal, keep track of your process. That's only going to work if you're an analytical kind of person that wants the charts and the graphs and all that other stuff. If you're and again, this is personality type. If you're an expressive or a driver or that, you ain't going to do that. Okay. So anyway, and the other thing is, consider your start time. Decide on when you're going to start this diet. You can choose to go meat only, includes some quality dairy, gradual transition. However, I tend to like to jump off and say, okay, from this to this, and this is it, what we're doing. Okay. From my perspective, if you just do this gradual, goofy thing, there are too many off ramps that you can get off and say, well, and then you're off the rails and you're down the road and you're not even there anymore. Okay. So be militant, make the decision, start today or Monday, whatever the day is, make a decision to start. Quit mucking around with it. Okay. Some people will say that the carnivore diet is going to be more expensive. That's a bunch of nonsense. Okay. When you're shifting, let's say you have a pile of $100, and that's what you shop with. Okay. You're not buying all this other crap, the carbohydrates, the fast food, the donuts, the chips, and all that other crap. You're going to focus on your meat. And you can get $100 worth of meat that'll last you 2 or 3 weeks. And depending, depending on what you buy in the sales and so on and so forth, it's not more expensive. You're shifting the dollar from one location to the other. You're shopping the back of the store, and that's what you're buying, the meat. Okay. Now, I will tell you that the best thing that you can do, and my wife and I have a small farm. Okay. We raise cows, chickens. I have got quail, goats, pigs. We've had some pigs. We're getting ready to get a couple more. And we process them for our own consumption, but we also process them and other people buy our product. Okay. We raise it, we feed it, we take orders if you want a quarter of beef, if you want a half a side beef, or if you want the whole freaking cow. You buy it and we deliver it to you, or you pick it up. And when you pick it up, it's in boxes. And if it's a whole cow, chances are you're dealing with anywhere from 600 to 800 pounds worth of meat. Okay. And that's not counting the fat that you'll get. And I'll explain that in just a minute. But you're gonna pay for that side of cow, that cow. Let's just say it's $4,000. Okay. So let's just say it's 600 pounds worth of meat. Well, divide the 4,000 into the 600, you'll get a cost per pound. As a matter of fact, hey Suri, what is 4,000 divided by 600? Oh, wow, that's interesting. $6.66. Okay. So $6.66 a pound for all your cuts of meat across the table. All right. That's all the good cuts. That's all the pork. That's not pork, but all the amber and this, and that's everything across the board. If you take that cow and break it down and go into the grocery store and buy a cow in the grocery store, what do you think you would end up paying across the board if you averaged everything out with the cost of meat today? I would submit to you, you're probably going to pay in the neighborhood of anywhere from about $14,000 to $20,000. So I would suggest to you, if you have the space, and if you don't have the space, buy a freezer. I've got 3 of them, big freezers. Actually, no, I take that back. I've got 4 of them. Okay. You can go on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever, and you can buy a used freezer that somebody's selling because they don't have room for it anymore, or whatever, for pennies on the dollar, and have yourself a freezer and buy your meat in bulk from a local farmer, or a farmer like, we ship, but You've got shipping cost. If you're local, if you're within the state of Texas, it's probably worth it to you. But you can find a local farmer that's selling cuts of beef. And if you want a quarter of beef, then get a quarter of beef. It'll be the back quarter or the front quarter. And you get the cuts of beef. Still much cheaper than buying in the grocery store, and the quality is going to be that much greater. Okay. So anyway, consider that. And if you'd like more information on that, email me. You'll see my email flash across the screen or in the notes, or that you can, and I'll be happy to get you more information on that and kind of direct you. Okay. All right. So the last thing is I got to give this disclaimer. Okay. Anytime that you want to do something nutritionally or change your diet or whatever, you talk to your doctor. Okay. Now, or your healthcare professional. However, if your doctor has ever told you you need to lose weight, you just talk to your doctor. Okay. I will supply some links for the carnivore diet from medical doctors that I respect, I follow. I would suggest that you watch them, get a little bit of information. If you're like me, you'll go down the rabbit hole and you'll just explode with this information. And by the time you're done, you'll probably be excited and you'll be pissed at the same time, because you've been buffaloed with a lot of bullshit. And I do not apologize for my language. This is my podcast. I like to be kind of straightforward and to the point. Okay. Now, some of you may notice in my different episodes 1, 2, and 3, I had a different hat on. I am a veteran. I was in the Army. The other 2 hats had my unit insignia on it that I was with, which was the 197th out of Fort Benning, Georgia, back in the early 80s. But I like wearing a hat on the podcast because my hair is just there. I look much better. I just got a haircut, so it's short. And anyway, if any of the viewers out there, if you've got a unit and you want me to wear the hat, I would be happy to wear the hat on my podcast and give a shout out to you. I would love to do that. Anything I can do to support our men and women in uniform, I will do. Now, if you send me something outside the Army, if you send me Marine, Navy, Air Force, or that, my head may itch a little bit, but that's okay. I will wear the hat. I will give you the shout out. Okay. So anyway, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope it provided you some information. I hope it prompted you to investigate, and I had a lot of fun doing it. A lot of fun. Anyway, that's it. Talk to you later. God bless. Have a good day. Make good choices always. All right. Be good. Bye.